flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey.
Quick sound check. Councilor Jorstack, can you hear us?
It's a little bit spotty, but I've been able to make out what you said.
Okay, if we can get a roll call.
Councilmember Daughtry,
Present.
Councilmember Peter Shagan,
Present.
Councilmember Frederick,
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson,
Present.
Councilmember Jorstack,
Present, this sounds better, thanks.
Councilmember Ewing,
Present.
Councilmember Tajik.
Present.
All right.
Very good. Turn the time over to Vice President Frederick for approval of the agenda.
All right, council, can I get a motion for approval of the agenda as written, or are there any amendments that need to be made?
I'll move to submit it as, or approve as submitted.
Second.
Um,
I have discussion. Yeah. Which one are we doing?
We need to amend the one that was just sent out this afternoon, the electronic version. The paper one is different than the one that they published with the new contract.
So I'll amend my motion to approve the agenda minus the changes for the contract with Data Transfer Solutions.
Second.
All right, being properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, got an agenda. Thank you. We can go to citizen comments. Clerk John, if we could check for online comments first.
Sure, I'm not seeing anybody yet. And just a reminder for anybody online to use the raise hand feature in Zoom if you'd like to speak. And we have 3 people online with no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So nobody online for public comment. We'll Kirk Pearson, if you could take your place at the podium. You've got 3 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, council, and Kirk Pearson from Volunteers America for Western Washington. I'm just here to let you know we're going to give you all a special invite on June 8th, which is a Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock. I'd like to invite all of you to a special breakfast, and there's no selling. We're not selling any items or anything like that, but we're just celebrating getting back together again. The invite went out to all our elected city council members in Snohomish County and tribal elected officials and our congressional and some of our state legislators. But wanted to come up here and personally invite you, and also city manager Dean, you're always welcome. But wanted to extend that invitation to all of you. So thank you. And we appreciate all that you do for us and everyone in the county. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your invitation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment unrelated to the public hearing that we have? Seeing none, we'll close the citizen comment period. President Frederick, if we could get council business.
All right. Council business, let's go ahead and start with Councilmember Jorstack.
Thank you. I have nothing to share this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Tajik.
I don't have anything to share this evening. I do have a question though, that maybe we could just get an answer to. Is Snohomish cities usually gets together and they talked about getting back together. I haven't seen
Last Thursday night.
last Thursday night. Okay, great.
Oh, well.
Okay, well, hopefully look forward to next month, but it used to be a great way to get together with the other council people in the community.
Yeah, no, Caitlin put it out to us several times, so it's a dinner. Car red last Thursday.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Simply that I attended the school board meeting last week. It's always a joy to see all the Apple Awards that they give out. Kids are getting excited about graduation, and prom just occurred. So it's all positive, and don't we need that? That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Councilmember Daughtry.
Okay, so I attended Snohomish County City's dinner on Thursday night.
Shucks.
And the presentation was by, I don't remember his first name, his last name's Ewing. And I think,
Great guy.
yeah, he's a great guy. He's a half brother, is that right?
Could be.
Could be. They said that. Anyway, he gave us a presentation about ARPA funds and what everybody's doing with the ARPA funds, or trying to do with the ARPA funds from AWC. So they're actually asking us for stories about what we're doing with our ARPA funds. I did tell them how we were doing it, and everybody already understands that way of doing it. There's quite a few things happening out there with that that were interesting that people are doing. So it's Sultan's doing some great stuff with it. They're using some of to do facades in their downtown area and things like that. So, and then the other thing I have a report, and it was going to be a lengthy report, but I forgot it on my desk. I went to Skip this morning. There was a big discussion by WashDOT about all the money coming in from the state and the feds for all of our transportation. The big one, of course, that everybody wants to know about is the trestle. There's $330 million coming in the new the new money's coming in, and what that is for more planning, environmental, et cetera. And that's in a 16-year plan. So I'm not really sure we're ever going to get a trestle bill, but they're kind of waiting for the $1.2 billion to fall out of the sky or something. But they are starting the infrastructure studies and the environmental studies for the west side of the trestle to find out how we're going to tie it into I-5, which is the biggest problem of the entire structure. So that's what they also had some things in there that I wasn't aware of, that there's some things that we need to be looking at for our TIP. We need to be discussing our preservation of our roads and sidewalks, because some of the money that's coming down from the state is tied to that. And if it's not in our TIP, we will not be able to get our portion of that $50 million of preservation money. So we need to kind of look at our TIP and figure out how we can get into that and get some more preservation done on our streets. So that'd be great. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that we did get approved for the 16th Street improvements to the Centennial Trail, the improvements to 20th Street to the Centennial Trail, more improvements for getting the trail out to Highway 9. And all that's been approved and highlighted today. That was kind of nice to highlight with Stevens in there. So we're getting quite a bit of money out there. We need to make sure we get our fair share. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Peter Sagan.
Thank you. Attended Planning Commission last week. They're continuing their good work. Busy summer they're going to have with things, and it's always nice to see. Just if I may ask a question of my Councilmember Daughtry, the money that was allocated through the transportation, none of that 300 million or whatever is focused on any kind of improvements. It's all planning and design work.
It's all planning and design.
Of course it is.
$330 million.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. I have nothing to report this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Ewing.
Attended the youth council meeting. We had 2 meetings scheduled the same night on Thursday night. So they're continuing their excellent work. They are working together with the community. The suicide awareness walk last year was the first year. So August 13th will be their 2nd annual event. And I know that there's people here present tonight that have participated and helped with that. And so the youth council wants to take a more active role. Some of the members did participate in it last year, but they wanted to be more involved, given the significance of suicide and suicidality amongst our teenagers and youth in the community. That's it for me. No mayor business. I'm obviously not Mayor Gailey. He's away on business. And so I'll turn the time over to Russ Wright for City Department report.
Okay, I had just put in a couple of written reports for the the council that are in your packet, just going over business, licenses and permits to date. We're on track for what we've done, and then just highlighting some meetings lately. Specifically, we've had some design meetings for Sunset Park and starting the path for construction of Frontier Heights.
Thank you. We'll have guest business. We got Commander Thomas, if you could come do the presentation for the drone presentation and donor recognition.
I'm Commander Dean Thomas. On behalf of Chief Aziza and Deputy Chief Young, I would like to issue a certificate of appreciation. Yes, come up here to Snohomish Valley Roofing for our donating to our drone program. It's good. I'll just read the certificate of appreciation. In appreciation of your generous donation to the Lakeview Police Department, we express our sincere gratitude for your contribution and support of the drone program. The department has 2 trained pilots and 2 drones ready to be deployed to scenes. The drones can assist with missing persons, locating suspects, disaster response, mapping, crash and crime scenes, searching dangerous areas, and information gathering. The drones will enhance the capability of officers and investigators dealing within a wide range of possible scenarios and make for enhanced level of safety and service. So thank you again for the challenge.
Thank you so much.
Appreciation. Have a drone little demonstration, but I decided to. So just a little quick highlights of our drone program and how important it is for us, right? First of all, it shows our community support, right, to help us. Since in November, Corporal Brian and Sergeant Valvick went to Texas to get trained on the drones, which is a huge asset to us. I just did just a quick count before we came, 36 deployment, and that is all mission deployments, right, since December. So obviously and that's just with 2 drone pilots. So there's plenty of times that we could have assisted if we had the capability to assist. So with the 2 drones, we've called out a few times off duty and said, hey, can you help us out? Like we said, we've done it for everything from missing persons to burglary suspects, to crash scenes, just photograph crime scenes. And then in the future, we would like to, with a kind of unified traffic unit, I was talking to other agencies as well that have the capability that has a 360 scan, but we can go up in the air, and we do currently have the program to do it. It's just a matter of getting everybody trained, and it's just a great tool. So thank you so much.
Anything you'd like to say, Matt?
When the Everett police officer lost his life, I just felt we had to do something. For one of these guys not to come home at night, it's just terrible. So I don't know how big of a deal this is, but we just needed to do something, and I hope the rest of the community maybe come up with some other ideas to fund the police, not fund the police, and just make the job easier. Stop, just whatever's going on. It's just needs to change, and hopefully we can change this by giving you this tool so you're not engaged in some kind of dangerous position where you use this machine up in the air and you're protected, you're not involved in it, or you're in danger. So that's just got fired up.
think that I'm the only wife perhaps in Lake Stevens whose husband says, I feel really strongly about something. I have something to say now. Janice, go say it. So all we had to do was ask our police department, this is what they wanted. This is what we can do. We're honored to be there. So thank you.
Thanks to Craig, to not here. So, who started this with us, we went together. And he just kind of guided us, so.
We call him Sergeant Velvet.
Yeah, I think Councilmember Tagit, I think you acknowledged recently that the drones helped apprehend a suspect down by Snohomish Valley roofing burglary suspect earlier this year. So this drone program has already been successful in helping keep our community safe.
I think there's a lot of areas that have homeless people and encampments. I think there's a great way to go and look for those. I know there's an area behind Hagen's and throughout the power lines. This will be a great way to do a quicker territorial search and make sure that we're not allowing that kind of stuff here in the community.
Thank
What
you.
a great asset.
Curtis Clifton, if we could do introduction of our new crew workers. Come on, Joel.
Hey, you might as well bring them all up here.
Council President, council members. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing our three newest members of the Public Works team. First, we have Adam Blanc, who is working in the Parks Department. Adam has a varied background in parks operations and management, spanning multiple agencies such as California State Parks, Oregon State Parks, Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation, and City of Bellevue Parks and Community Services. Adam is a returned Peace Corps volunteer who served in Guinea in 2012, where he taught English as a foreign language to middle school and high school students. When he's not at work, Adam in his spare time enjoys cooking, baking, repairing electronics, and as an avid reader and traveler. Join me.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Hey, welcome. Thank you. Next, we have Mitch Anderson. He is in the Streets and Facilities Department. Mitch was born and raised in Lake Stevens and graduated from Lake Stevens High School in 2001. His work background includes the grocery industry, underground gold mining in Nevada, driving a dump truck, and for the past 5 years, he worked in the highway maintenance division of Washington. Outside of work, Mitch loves being outside, working on vehicles, riding dirt bikes with his kids, and camping, and also spending time with his soon-to-be 5 kids, 3 girls and 2 boys. Mitch has expressed how excited he is to be a part of the Public Works crew and have the opportunity to get back to the community. Please welcome Mitch Anderson.
Sir. Thank you. Great to meet you. Nice to meet you.
And lastly, we have Joel Tate. Joel is working in the stormwater department. For the last 3 years, Joel's been working in the underground utility industry, installing storm, water, and sanitary sewer lines. He also served 6 years in the United States Marine Corps, where he operated the M1A1 Abrams tank. Received 2 Navy Achievement Medals, placed second in the Marine Corps wide tank competition, and was honorably discharged in 2019. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his wife and their 2 fur babies. He also enjoys fishing, hiking, backpacking, and considers himself an outdoor aficionado. Please join me in welcoming Joel.
Still keeping the land tidy. Just call me back.
That's it.
Yeah, Joe.
That's my son's height.
Disappointed me, Doc.
Huh?
Disappointed.
It's got the high and tight. That's still.
I recognize that parade, Russ.
All right, can we get a approval of the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda passes unanimously. I will now move to the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing. We'll ask that Director Russ Wright provide us with a staff report presentation.
Great, thank you, council. I will be presenting the development agreement for the Lakeview Flats project. Can I get control?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, this is a public hearing for the Lakeview Flats Development Agreement. It's a project the city has been working on with the respondent for about a year. And just want to walk through the details of the project, the specifics of the development agreement, and then leave some time for the council to ask questions. So some just general project details. The project would be located at the corner of Main Street and Mill Spur. So if you all turned around and looked out the window, it'd be where that yellow tractor is right now. The site's going to be about 0.34 acres. As mentioned, the applicant is Lakeview Flats LLC, also known as West Rock LLC, is where we started. And then the owner of the property is currently the city of Lake Stevens. So development agreements are a tool that's authorized in the state statutes and the revised Code of Washington. I added the statutes in that we're looking at in particular. And then under the city's code, we've also adopted this authority in 1416C. .055. And what the development agreement does, it helps give some certainty to the developer and to the city in larger projects, potentially phased projects or projects of significance. In this case, since this is a parcel in our downtown core that we're surplusing for economic development, the city wanted to help guide what that project would look like to ensure that we're going to continue to have some economic prosperity adjacent to Mill Spur and to complete our downtown plan as envisioned. So some of the specific topics in the development agreement that we've discussed would be the design standards, again, looking to what the city has done in this area already. What are the permitted uses going to be? One of the things we requested that there would be active first floor uses, and the applicant is proposing some restaurant uses and outdoor dining patios, so definitely would do that. In the development agreement, we talk about impact fees. So what would be due to the city for the development? Would any impacts to the city occur, and how are those to be mitigated? And then an important thing that the development agreement does, it sets vesting rights. So what that means is when that agreement is approved, that locks the clock. So the building permits, their land use permits, follow the rules that are in effect upon that complete development agreement. So they have certainty that they can develop to the plan they've been working towards for 5 years with a potential 5-year extension after that. And then it also allows the city and the applicant to discuss any modified standards that would relate to this development. They haven't asked for any specific modifications, but there are some modifications allowed by code when we talk about parking in 2 minutes. So some other project details. This is what the project is going to look like. It's a 3-story mixed-use building. There would be 3 tenant spaces with some restaurant use and then 6 residential units on the top 2 floors. And as I mentioned, we did talk a lot about parking with the applicant and how they would meet the parking standards. So in a couple of sections of the city's municipal code that deal with parking, we looked at those. So the first thing to consider is in the central business district. It provides flexibility out of the gate for parking, with the idea that you're in a downtown core and there will be some on-street parking available. So that's one of the things we looked at. They provided parking analysis to us that showed how they would meet our parking standards. So what they propose are 26 on-site parking spaces, and those include 19 spaces that are shared on-site. So the residential uses, the morning uses will share the spaces that would be also used by the afternoon users. They've also provided or identified 14 on-street spaces that they can count towards their parking requirement. And then we've talked about leasing 7 additional parking spaces to them on an adjacent property. And there would be a lease agreement and an option to purchase that parcel in the future. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So there are some other reviews that the applicant is subject to. These are administrative reviews. The first one is their SEPA review under the State Environmental Policy Act. So the city has issued its planned action determination last week, sent that to affected agencies. They have submitted for their administrative design review. So that is the look at the building, the landscaping, et cetera, under the adopted guidelines that the council put into effect in 2012. They've submitted for their construction plan review. So that's the nuts and bolts of the infrastructure, their water, their sewer, grading, et cetera. And then a future permit they'll be subject to is their building permit. So there are some related actions to this development agreement. The first is a purchase and sale agreement. So going back to about January of 2021, the city issued a request for proposals for the surplus of that parcel. And we wanted somebody to come in with an idea to purchase and develop that parcel. Lakeview Flats was the responsive applicant. And during that period, we set the sales price of $500,000 for the lot. That was based on appraisals of properties in the vicinity. And once they're given the green light, they would have the project completed within 12 months. And then as we went through the analysis of their project, they did provide a traffic report that identified the new what are called PM peak hour trips. So those there would be a prorated monthly lease when the city did use those parking spaces, whether for Aquafest or other city type events. And then I also mentioned that we had discussed a future option to purchase that property. And originally, we thought we were able to surplus and sell that property, but the proceeds that purchased that property were grant funded. So there's an obligation that we retain that property for at least 10 years after the grant became effective. And the trade-off is we still have community use for events, and then there will be lease rates coming in. So there are also some offsite improvements that we talked about. When we started negotiating this, the city had not started Mill Spur yet. And so that was one of the things we talked about, that the city would complete Mill Spur and stub the utilities to the property line. As you can all see, that's nearly completed. So the city's obligation has been completed for Mill Spur and the intersection improvements. And the applicant would continue our trail and path to their south property lines as part of their offsite improvements. And then we've already talked about the offsite parking lot.
Just want to let you know, they can hear online now because I've unmuted my computer. They just can't see this room. Oh.
And that really doesn't come into effect with this project. So the staff's recommendation tonight is for the council to approve resolution 2022-08 and authorize the mayor or designee to execute the development agreement, purchase and sale agreement, and then the subsequent lease agreement with the option to purchase for the additional real property. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments from the council on this proposal.
Council?
Any questions for Director Wright?
I have Russ Gary here. Just a quick question. I'm just looking through the documents and so forth, and I just want to make sure that the city attorney has reviewed all these documents. It appears that some of the documents may have been prepared by the applicant's attorney, and I'm make sure that we have reviewed and approved everything that's been submitted. In particular, I think it's the real property option agreement. I do believe that was prepared by our city attorney, but I'm not seeing anywhere on here that in other documents, there's typically a line for the city attorney to approve those documents, and I'm not seeing that on the real property option agreement.
Yes, our city attorney reviewed all of the documents to date, and I believe the city attorney is online if he wants to provide any additional comments.
Right, I've just to let you know, yes, I've reviewed all of the documents and engaged in a lot of editing exercises with the applicant's attorney, and am comfortable with the language in all the agreements.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to reserve myself for probably some questions after public testimony.
You're perfect. Councilmember Jorstad.
Thank you. I just wanted to check in that there are 6 units of housing. I'm assuming that's rental housing versus condos or housing for purchase.
The applicant has suggested that they would like those to be condominiums for sale.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councilmember Jorstad?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Any other questions, staff? Seeing none, prior to opening for public comments from the audience, I'd like to invite the applicant to make a statement prior to that, and then we'll go open for public comments.
Awesome, thank you, thanks for having us, thanks again for the council's
Can you
time.
come up with the podium, please? Thank you.
You just identify yourself for the record, so.
Yep, I'm Brian, one of the owners at Lakeview Flats. So yeah, I just want to say thank you again for the council's time. Thank you again for all the city's time, the attorney's time. It's been one of those fun, like you said, exercises in review of paperwork. So it's been a process, but it's been great working with the city and everybody involved. So thank you again. We're here for questions. That's about all everything I had to say. If we erupt in a coughing fit, we'll step out. We're day 8 or 9 on our COVID journey here. So CDC says we're masked up everywhere we go. So we're here for these.
Okay. All right, thank you, Brian. So we can open the for public comments. If we could go online, Kelly, for any online participants, if they have any comments for the public hearing.
So again, if you would like to participate via Zoom, please raise your hand for public comment.
Okay, no comments. Very good. Would anyone from the audience like to address the council? All right, seeing none, I don't see any green sheets. Kelly, okay. So we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. Director Wright, do you have any additional comments you'd like to make in light of what's just transpired?
I do not, but again, any other questions from the council, I'm happy to address.
Okay, Councilmember Peter Shagan, you indicated you had may have some additional questions or comments.
Yeah, just a couple of questions for the record here. This looks like a great project, so a great asset to the city. So that's looking forward to something happening down here, but I do have a couple of questions. In the SEBA checklist, Director Wright, page 7, it talks about the parking lot is going to be permeable surface and likely for infiltration. Is that possible?
Well, we're in the middle of the construction plan review, so that's what they've indicated preliminarily on their drawings, that they would like to do some infiltration out here. The city on its project was able to do some infiltration, so during the construction plan review, we will consider that with our peer reviewer.
So if that is not able to happen, there has been no provision made for the storm drainage in the improvements that we've done on Mill Spur Road.
So the city's project, yes, we've been able to infiltrate a portion of our stormwater. We've also collected a portion of our stormwater that's been treated. And so the same would be true on this. If they cannot infiltrate on the site, then they will need to detain and then release into the city's system.
Okay, great. Thank you. The other question I have is, can you give me some background on the thought process as to why the city is interested in selling the little parcel to the west of this development? It's my understanding that there is a need for parking there in order to meet code. But I'm wondering why the city, with this central development that we've done down here, why we would be interested in selling that piece of property at a later date.
Okay, again, I would go back to my comments earlier that when we had gone to the council at some point in the past to authorize the surplus, it had been with the intent of doing a block outside of the museum and the Grimm House that included a portion of this parcel. And then as we went through our discovery, we found that we had obligations, so we couldn't sell and surplus that at that time. And that's when we came up with the idea that perhaps they would be interested in a lease of that area for parking, and then still, as you said, address some of the city's needs that we're able to maintain some use of that space.
If I can chime in too on that, I don't ever remember a time of us ever thinking to surplus land right down for where the memorial is going to be, where we're going to have the historical society, where we're going to have everyone playing in the park and so forth. I love this project. I think it's great. But I think I like the least part of this, as we have so many events down here. 4 probably doesn't even begin to talk about regattas, Aquafest, any kind of memorial where we have people who are going to be attending the War Memorial for events like Memorial Day, things along those lines. And I don't ever remember a time thinking, let's give up parking downtown Lake Stevens. Like, I just think we have so little of it. We've talked about so many other times, and I think Kim would know too in the past, like where we're going to put people. But I like the idea of leasing it to them with provisions that we can use it on. I don't know. I don't think 4 is enough, and give them a credit back for that. But I don't see wanting to sell that. And plus, this was granted. This is part of grant money, and to think that we got this money by grant for our downtown area, giving that up and saying, oh, we have the grant, we have to hang on to it for so long, then we get to make some money off it. I'm not for that necessarily, but I love the project, and if we can pave it and they can still use it and lease it out, I'm for that.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
I have to kind of agree on the parking issue. I'm not too sure about that. I know we talked about it quite a while ago, but the more I think about it, the more I don't like the fact that we're giving up parking spaces downtown where
It's ultra premium.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know what to do about it, to tell you the truth, but I don't like the fact that we could possibly sell the property. I don't see a reason for doing that.
So that would be a decision to be determined at a later date. Correct.
Well, I know that the decision, I don't know if it's a decision to sell at a later date. If you put it in the way the description in here is, it's lease with the option to buy. So if they take that option, we don't have an option to say no.
Right.
Okay.
If we have a lease agreement, they do a lease agreement with the option for us to sell. That's the opposite direction.
Okay. Is there any other property in the area they could purchase to help with that or something, or I don't know. We have so limited with parking downtown is the hardest part. And I know that across the street, they get very frustrated with the amount of people that park over there already, to where they're putting signs up and so forth. And, for building a really phenomenal, historical museum here, where are they going to park? The parking, once that gets full and we have markets and so forth, there's just not going to be a lot of parking for people to be down here, especially those who maybe have needs with walking or handicapped, with trying to be close to the venue. I don't know. I'm looking at that. Once again, I like the project. Maybe there's some other solutions that we could fleece out through this.
So the question really is, does this negate, if we don't have this, does it make it to where they can't do this and still be code?
So again, that's why I started with discussing the central business district, that it provides innate flexibility in parking with the assumption that there is on-street parking. So there is on-street parking with building more, we're adding a significant amount with Mill Spur. So yes, they could still meet code. What they were trying to do is come up with a way that they were not pushing the parking offsite onto the street, but yeah, they could still meet code with using on-street parking. So that's not necessarily, to me, an issue that would make this project fail. It's just who controls that parking lot, and then how is it constructed?
So with the six condos, is that right, Brian? So 6 condos, what is the requirement for parking for the 6 condos? Just the requirement for those 6?
2 spaces per unit.
2 per, okay, so that's 12 out of the, how many spaces are in the other parking spot?
Yeah, 26 on
26
on their lot.
And those could be basically signed as tenants only, right?
Yeah, or those, that's part of that shared contingency. I mean, they can manage that how they see fit. But
Russ, if I might add, we had talked about, I think Mill Spur is to have some parking, kind of temporary type parking with the exception of events. Is that going to be designated short-term parking? Like 2 hours only or something?
yeah, we have not talked about how we are going to sign or do traffic control down on Mill Spur yet, but it does provide parking, but doing time limited parking would be reasonable down here. Very easy to do, 2 hours or things like other downtowns do. So, yeah.
So I guess having that kind of short-term ability for the clients or the customers of what's going to take place, that's an option in
Yes.
addition to the designated parking lot. There are 7 stalls in this subject area we're talking about. So I guess even with that diminishing number down to 14, 26 minus 12, 14, there still seems to be flexibility, I guess, or options for, I mean, the crunch time is going to be when we have events down here. That's going to be the difficult, but that's difficult regardless.
Right.
So
It's always been difficult.
yeah.
So I'm hearing that instead of an option to, for the applicant, the option to buy, that the city would retain the option to sell that, and that we would manage that. Is that the direction that the council wants to go?
If we own the property, we have the option to sell it without
Right.
paperwork.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a given.
Is it something that you're still,
Lease only.
is it something we plan on leasing, or is it something we plan on making available for everybody? That would be the question. And it doesn't mean that people can't use that to go to the shops and stuff that are gonna be there and so forth, or the historical society, or the, other stuff that's there, or the memorial. Are we gonna, and once again, we can put an hour time limit or 2 hour time limit for them to go and use it there and so forth, but then it remains available to the public to use if somebody wants to go fishing for a couple hours or use the park.
I think that the change that probably would need, as the agreement states, I think in exchange for the applicant building that parking lot, is they get the option to lease it and utilize it.
Sure. Why wouldn't we just build it out? Or do we?
Yeah,
have anything
exactly. I
else?
guess that would be the change that would need to take place, is that they probably wouldn't be interested in building the parking lot.
Of course not. I wouldn't want to,
But
but
I wouldn't either.
I think we're talking about more exclusive events and so forth. So I think they could still give tenants parking, but those same people who are going to be using the shops and so forth will have 2 hours to come down and use whatever is down there. I don't know what's on the docket for restaurants and so forth, but they'd still be able to use it, but then it remains open to the public as well for other uses.
I think that sounds like the most flexible way we can use the property.
So just to do sort of a head count, I've sort of heard from 3 council members that you have concerns with the parking, and just looking, I guess, for general consensus with the rest of the council. And if that's the case, I would give you an amended recommendation, which is you hold open the public hearing and allow us to go back with the applicant and sort of renegotiate some of the terms of the development agreement, specifically as they relate to the parking agreement, the lease agreement, and then we could bring this back to you in a couple of weeks for your action.
So I'm supportive of continuing the hearing and allowing that language to change. Mary, I see your head nodding.
I agree.
Angie?
I agree.
Okay, so it looks like we have
Yes.
unanimous consent to do that, to continue the hearing. Well, I guess we gotta. Already, I can't remember if I closed the public hearing or not.
You close the comment?
Okay.
Close that.
Okay. All right, so we will, no more discussion from the council. I'm hearing none. We'll close the public hearing and ask the council to.
President, I think we do need to give a date of our continuing hearing. Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
To the 14th.
think we're changing the workshop and the 8 to a special meeting.
7.
The 7.
We got it.
I would prefer to probably wait until the 14th. That might be so.
Okay. So if we, guess the recommendation is to continue the hearing to the 14th of June. Is the council supportive of that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's, we need a vote on that. No vote? You're shaking. Okay.
Yeah.
Greg, is that correct?
I think it'd be better to have a motion to continue the public hearing to the
Make a motion
14th.
To continue the public hearing till June 5th.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So motion passes unanimously. So thank you, Council and Director Wright for your thoughtful discussion. We'll now move on to executive session. Announce the nature of the executive session, please.
The council will be recessed into a confidential session to discuss potential litigation per RCW 42.30.1101I. So the public will need to leave the room. Greg and Angie, if you can switch to the Teams link that I sent. That would be great. And Ryan is also going to be joining us.
All right, we should probably announce the length of the executive session. What
Greg, how long do you think you need?
I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes, I would expect.
A quick question. Is there action to follow or can I exit out of this Zoom meeting?
Yeah, there'll be no action to follow.
There will be no action, Angie, but we will have to come back and close the meeting, and adjourn the meeting.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Can this truly be done in 5 minutes here?
I think so.
Okay.
So-
Remember, we have 5 minutes.
Good evening, it's 7:08, and the council has requested an additional 5 minutes to their executive session. We will be back at 7:13. Thank you.
right, we get a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Right.